Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is taking that huge pile of information about our digital world and making some real sense of it. Today, we're going under the hood, looking at what really goes into making any website work. We're diving into the key things developers wrestle with when they put code onto a web platform. We've kind of boiled it down to five main areas, these five pillars that shape modern web development. And honestly, they often clash. We're talking performance, platform independence, power, protocols and APIs, and maybe the biggest one, security. This should give you a much better handle on why the sites you use daily work the way they do and, where the really tough engineering problems are.
That's exactly right. And the goal for you listening isn't just to get definitions, it's to see the huge impact of the choices developers make in every single one of these areas. I mean, every time you open an app, these five things are shaping your experience. How fast you can pay that bill, how quickly your phone battery dies, and whether your personal info is actually safe. We really want to show you the hidden structure controlling your digital life.
Okay, let's kick things off where maybe the friction is most obvious for users, performance. So when we say performance, yeah, we mean speed. How fast is the page load? But it's also about responsiveness, how quickly it reacts to you, and overall efficiency, like how much of your computer's power is it actually eating up?
Right. And performance, it's like the gatekeeper. The data is pretty clear, wait just a few seconds too long, and people are gone. They just leave a slow site. But here's the bit that really matters today, the deeper thing. Performance is now directly tied to business success. Why? Because it's tangled up with search visibility. Google, other search engines, they actively reward faster websites with higher rankings. So a developer optimizing for speed, they're not just making users happy, they're actually defending the company's bottom line, their whole economic model, really.
That makes sense. So how do they actually make things faster? I mean, besides just writing fast code, whatever that means. You mentioned data management, caching specifically. We all kind of know caching, right? Saving stuff locally so the site loads faster next time. But you're saying the interesting part is, well, managing it is actually super complex.
Oh, absolutely. The hard part isn't just saving the data. It's knowing when to get rid of the old stuff. Cache invalidation, they call it.
Mm.
Developers have to set up these sometimes quite complex strategies, maybe using specific HTTP headers, things like that. Cache too long, you see old stale information, don't cache enough. The site feels slow every single visit. It's this constant, really fine-tuned balancing act between keeping things fresh and keeping things fast.
Okay, so that push for maximum speed, it leads straight into the next big headache, doesn't it? Making sure it works the same everywhere, on every device, every browser. That's platform independence. Because, I mean, what good is a blazing fast site on your desktop Chrome if it crawls on, say, Safari on an older iPhone? The developers kind of failed then, right?
Totally. The aim is universal access. The code has to look right, work right, across all the main browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, you name it. And it needs to adapt smoothly to any screen size, from a huge desktop monitor right down to maybe even a tiny wearable screen. We often talk about writing code once.
Yeah, and that sounds great from an efficiency standpoint. I get it, developers save loads of time not having to rewrite code for 6 different operating systems or whatever. But the hidden challenge there is just how fragmented the web actually is. It's not neat and tidy. Like the Ron's Tech Hub website, for example. It needs to work perfectly for someone on the latest OS and for someone maybe stuck on an old corporate version of Windows from, I don't know, 2015.
Exactly. That's why platform independence is this ongoing battle. New browser versions pop up all the time. And then you have accessibility tools, things like screen readers. Supporting those means thinking about hundreds of little edge cases. If you truly want everyone to access your content, you often have to design for the lowest common denominator. And that sometimes means you have to sacrifice some of the really cool, cutting-edge, high-performance features. Okay, right. Let's pivot a bit. We've talked speed, we've talked access. Now let's talk about a sort of invisible cost of performance, moving towards power. We've established users want speed, demand speed, really. But speed costs processing power, and that processing drains your battery, especially on mobile.
Exactly. When we talk power, we're really focusing on energy efficiency, particularly for phones, tablets, things like that. A website coded inefficiently can just keep the CPU working over time, constantly redrawing things on the screen or running heavy JavaScript tasks in the background, these things called rendering loops. That unnecessary processing, that's what makes your phone get hot and just kills your battery. Right, so the engineering task here is actively managing that. It's about throttling or maybe deferring these heavy tasks. The developer has to make a conscious decision about when to run certain code, like maybe not loading those huge high-res images until you actually scroll down to them, or pausing complex animations if you're not actively clicking or tapping on the page.
Yeah, and it connects performance directly to sustainability in a way. Phishing code is obviously great for the individual user, saving their battery is a big deal. But think bigger. Reducing unnecessary CPU load across millions, maybe billions of users, that actually starts to have a real measurable impact on global energy consumption. It's kind of fascinating.
From the physical cost of power, let's shift to the invisible rules governing how everything talks to each other online. Protocols. These are the fundamental rules of the road, the agreed upon standards for how data gets from A to B across the network. So if power is the energy budget, you could say protocols are like the highway code.
That's a good way to put it. And the basic ones are pretty familiar, I think. HTTP, just for loading regular web pages. That evolved into HTTPS, the secure version, using encryption like SSL or TLS. You've also got things like FTP, mainly for file transfers. But where it gets really interesting from an engineering point of view is looking at the newer protocols. Things like HTTP2 or even QUIC. These newer ones, they're specifically designed to tackle latency. You know, that frustrating delay between when you click something and when something happens. They do clever things like bundling multiple requests together, handling data transfer more efficiently. It can drastically cut down the time it takes for really complex websites, the ones with tons of images and scripts, to fully load. It's a direct engineering answer to the demand for speed in modern apps.
Okay, and protocols. They work closely with APIs, right? Application programming interfaces. So if protocols are the rules for travel, APIs are more like the specific tools or services that let different destinations, different websites actually talk and work together. They seem to be what makes the web feel so interconnected.
Absolutely. APIs are pretty much the backbone of how modern web apps function. Think about common examples you use every day without even realizing it. Pulling live weather data, that's a weather API. Processing a secure payment online, that's a payment API. Embedding a map, probably the Google Maps API. What's fascinating, though, is the trade-off developers make when they use them. You get all this amazing functionality instantly without building it yourself, which is great, but you also create a dependency.
Ah, right. That dependency sounds critical. If a developer uses someone else's API, they're suddenly relying on that third party for performance, for uptime, and crucially, for security. So if the payment processor's API goes down, your website literally can't take orders, even if your own code is perfect. That must force developers to build in safeguards, right? Like backup plans.
Definitely. They have to think about resilience. Things like rate limiting, not overwhelming the API. And fallback mechanisms. What happens if the API fails? It adds another layer of complexity to the whole development process.
Okay, this feels like the perfect transition. We've talked speed, access, power, rules. Now let's hit the absolute bedrock that underpins and frankly complicates everything we've just discussed: security. The stakes here are just enormous, aren't they? Protecting user data, stopping hackers, basically maintaining the trust that lets the whole digital economy even function.
Yes, security forces us right back to a fundamental decision point.
Yeah.
Where does the processing happen? Client-side versus server-side. Client-side processing, as we've sort of touched on, that's code running right there in your web browser. It handles things like animations, making menus appear smoothly, doing those quick checks on forms before you even submit them. It gives you that instant feedback, that snappy responsiveness everyone loves.
And a performance upside is clear. You get that immediate reaction, it reduces the load on the main servers, and sometimes parts of the site can even work if your internet connection gets a bit shaky. But
And this feels like a big but.
Mhm.
This is where the security vulnerabilities creep in, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because that code is running locally, right there on your machine, it's completely exposed. Anyone can view it. And more importantly, anyone with basic browser developer tools can potentially change it. The code is essentially out in the open. So think about this. If a developer relies only on that client-side code for something critical, like, say, validating the price of an item in your cart or confirming you have permission to access something well, a savvy, maybe malicious user can just bypass that check entirely. They can alter the code or the data in their browser before it even gets sent back.
Wow. Okay, so what does that mean in practice? Does it mean basically anything important, anything involving sensitive data or core business rules has to be checked again on the server side? Like if the client-side code checks that you filled in your email address, the server has to run that exact same check, and probably much stricter ones the second it receives the information.
Exactly. That redundancy isn't optional. It's absolute mandatory for security. And there's the huge trade-off. You have to sacrifice some of that pure speed you got from doing things client-side, because making that check on the remote server inevitably introduces a delay, latency. You
Hmm.
gain security, which you absolutely need, but you lose some of that instant responsiveness, this tension. It basically defines modern web engineering.
You really do see this balancing act everywhere once you look for it. Online banking is a great example, isn't it? The interface feels quick, right? It shows your balance instantly. Menu slide open smoothly. That's mostly client side. But the second you actually try to transfer money, things slow down noticeably. That little pause, that deliberation, that's the server taking over, running multiple complex, non-negotiable security checks, confirming everything before it actually commits a transaction.
That example nails it perfectly. The appearance of speed is often driven by client-side code, but the actual security, the integrity of your money, that has to be handled server-side. So developers are constantly making this judgment call. Which bits can we safely speed up by running them in the browser? And which critical functions must we protect behind the server's security wall, even though we know it'll make the user wait a fraction longer?
Okay, let's try and pull this all together then. Let's recap the main takeaways we've unpacked. First, performance isn't just nice, it's vital for user happiness and business success, driving things like complex caching. Second, platform independence is this constant struggle for universal access against a really fragmented web. Third, power acts like an energy budget, pushing for efficient code and smart task management. And finally, security. It forces this essential, often costly redundancy. Any important client-side action involving data or money must be double-checked, triple-checked maybe, on the server.
Right. And maybe here's a final thought, something for you to chew on, that really ties speed and safety together. Given that even really secure things, like your online banking or payment systems, do use client-side stuff for that responsive feel, how does a developer actually decide the precise moment, the exact function, where they have to switch? When do they sacrifice the speed of running something in your browser for the necessary security and delay of running it on their server? It really brings up a fundamental question about responsibility. Is the platform's primary job to be fast, or is it to be absolutely secure? And honestly, can they ever truly, perfectly be both at the same time?
Understanding that architecture, those decisions, it gives you a lot more insight as a user, doesn't it? Now that you know about these invisible pillars holding up the web, we really encourage you to pay attention, see how these trade-offs play out in the speed, the feel, the security of the sites you use every day. Thanks for diving depth with us today.